We are at the 6th oldest rural cemetery in the United States.
This place is huge. There are 15 miles of roads inside the cemetery. A lot of well-known people are buried here. We're going to tell you where that TV show I Dream of Jeannie got the name. We're going to show you a headstone of a shark. What's that all about? And we got lots of other things to show you. This is a very interesting, very cool, awesome architecture type cemetery, and we're very excited to take a look at it with you. We're at Allegheny Cemetery in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we cordially invite you to come along for the adventure.
Come along. We are now at the grave of Don Brocky. You all may know him best as the chef who played on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Freddie played Chef Brockett on the show. He was also in multiple movies, including Silence of the Lambs, Fletch Lives, House Guest, and others. Brockett was diagnosed with polio as a child. Later in life, he got heavily involved in charity work around Pittsburgh, with polio research being a charity he was particularly fond of. He had a heart attack at the age of 65, less than half a year after House Guest was released. Fred Rogers worked with Brockett for 30 years on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. After hearing of his death, Rogers said, "He had such an enormous heart. It's hard to believe it was attacked so viciously."
We are now at the grave of Lester C. Madden. Can you guess what his favorite movie was?
We'll give you a big hint. He left a big hit behind for all of us to see. An iconic great white shark. Right here. Look at that. Madden was a Korean War veteran and a huge fan of the movie Jaws, so much so that he wanted to be buried under the head of the shark image that was used for the movie. As you can see, his wish was granted.
We are now at the grave of Stephen C. Foster. He was the first great American songwriter.
That's right, in 1846, he wrote his first big hit, which is a song called "Oh Susanna." It became an anthem for the California Gold Rush. He also wrote "My Old Kentucky Home" and the song "Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair." Of course, the TV show I Dream of Jeannie was named after that song. The song starts with the words, "I dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, born like a vapor on the summer air. I see her playing where the bright streams play, happy as the daisies that dance on her way." He wrote the song for his wife, Jane Denny McDowell, in 1854. Sadly, they were separated later that year. His parents died the next year, and he began drinking more, all of which led to his health beginning to deteriorate. His songwriting skills deteriorated as well after that. He was broke by the time he died on January 13th, 1864.
We are now at the Mausoleum of Lillian Russell. She was a famous actress and singer in the late 1800s and the early 1900s.
That's right. As a matter of fact, thousands of people showed up for her funeral, including many politicians and actors. President Harding sent a wreath that was put on top of her casket. She was actually born Helen Louise Leonard in Clinton, Iowa. Lillian Russell was her stage name. When Alexander Graham Bell placed the first ever long-distance phone call to President Grover Cleveland, Bell got Russell to sing on the phone call. She had 2 children during her 4 marriages. One of her kids died as a baby after an accident involving a diaper pen. In her prime, she was known as the American Beauty.
We are now at the grave of Alexander Hayes. He was a brigadier general in the Civil War.
That's right, he actually fought in the Battle of Gettysburg. His horse was shot out from under him 3 times, but he still survived the battle. He died during the Battle of the Wilderness on May 5th, 1864. He was close friends with Ulysses S. Grant. Grant actually came to visit his grave once while he was running for president. Former Pittsburgh Mayor Jared Brush was there and said Grant was weeping like a child during the visit. There is also a monument for him at Gettysburg.
We are now at a mausoleum that's Egyptian style.
Egyptian-themed mausoleum. It's the only one just like this in this particular cemetery. This is the final resting spot for Emil Winter. However, there's another one almost identical to this one. It was actually made by the same guy out in New York. That one is for F.W. Woolworth. Winter owned a meatpacking business until selling that in 1902. Then he co-founded the Pittsburgh Steel Company. John Russell Pope built both this mausoleum and the one for F.W. Woolworth in the Bronx, New York.
We are standing in front of the coolest mausoleum that we've seen yet in this cemetery.
This is the grave of J.B. Ford. He was the founder of the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company, PPG. Interesting thing about him is actually 2 cities over the years have been named after him. Ford City, Michigan, which combined with another city and eventually took that name away, but there's still a Ford City here in Pennsylvania. Ford was born in a log cabin on November 17th, 1811. He started his first business in his 20s selling pie safes, which were similar to what we now call cabinets. Later on, he switched his factory over to a shipyard and started to make steamboats. Later, he became the first person to make plate glass in Pittsburgh. The mausoleum is made in an angular Victorian Gothic style.
Our next grave is that of Kirk, Lemoyne, Billings. He was a classmate of JFK.
That's right, the cemetery got an order back in May of 1981 that there was going to be a private ceremony held here. Sure enough, the Kennedy crew showed up for the ceremony. He went by the name Lim. He went to school with John F. Kennedy at the Choate School in Connecticut, where they were close friends and both graduated together in 1935. He served in World War II, worked for both JFK's and Robert Kennedy's campaigns, and was a trustee at the Kennedy Library. The deaths of JFK and then later Robert led Lim into depression and drinking. He died at 65 years old in New York.
We are now at Cal Rodgers Grabe. He was the first person to ever buy an airplane, and he bought it from the Wright brothers.
That's pretty cool right there. There's an unfortunate ending to his story, though. He was performing at an air show in front of 7,000 people in Long Beach, California, when he crashed his plane into the ocean. That's where he passed away.
On September 17th, 1911, Rogers started what would become the first ever transcontinental airline flight across the U.S. During the flight, which was actually a series of 68 separate flights, he had 16 different near-fatal major crashes. At one point, he had to stop in Kyle, Texas to get the engine fix on his plane. He offered rides on another plane while he was waiting for the parts to fix his. He started at $5 for a ride and went all the way down to 50 cents with no takers. Eventually, a boy offered him a quarter. He put the boy on the plane, gave him back his quarter, and told him, "This one is a gift of flight, the sky, and the wind. You will see your whole town and the fields around it. You will know a different world. Now, that is a gift to remember." It took him more than a month and a half to finally make it to Pasadena, California. We are now at the Allegheny Monuments. The Allegheny Arsenal was the manufacturing and supply company for the Union Army in the Civil War.
Yeah, they only had about 308 workers working at the arsenal before the war started. During the war, there were more than 1,100. Unfortunately, in the main lab, on September 17th, 1862, there were 3 major explosions.
So sad.
The arsenal was actually very close to this site. 78 workers were killed in the explosion, and most of them were young females. 58 bodies were not identified, and they were all buried in a mass grave here.
We are now in the part of the cemetery that is created just for the soldiers who fought in war. And you can tell that they put a lot of time, money, and effort in making this memorial.
Very well done memorial. And then right over here, of course, we have the burial area for many of the soldiers. This memorial was put up in 1937. The cemetery has offered free burials for members of the military from Pittsburgh and for poor in the community ever since its founding.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We really enjoy driving around cemeteries and seeing all the different cool mausoleums and headstones. And this cemetery was really cool because we saw mausoleums and headstones like we've never seen before.
Pretty amazing cemetery. Look at this one right here. It's like an Egyptian pyramid. Pretty cool. This is Allegheny Cemetery, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you're ever in the Pittsburgh area, you got to come check this place out. You could spend a whole day here checking out the cool architecture and designs here in this cemetery. If we missed out on somebody you know about in here that we should have gotten, tell us in the comment section below. Y'all be sure to hit the like button, smash the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can come along with us on future adventures.
Come along.